Did you all enjoy the film? Did you like the new click track that they added at the very end? That was really something that they did in the digital remastering.
Nice retro.
So we actually have a surprise guest as well, who is coming in, and we have 3 people instead of 2. So Darren Dalton is here, who played Randy. Is Darren available? Darren is also now writing, and is a writing partner, and he works with Tommy Howell on creating new films that Tommy directs. Are you?
Check.
That's the new click track. It works on everything.
Yes. Okay. Hope you enjoyed it.
Hey everybody. Tommy. Any new viewers here, or are you all veterans?
Veterans.
All veterans, right? A couple of new people? Yeah? Did you get the new people? Did you like it? Did it hold up for you? Yeah. There's something, I don't know, felt so nostalgic to watch for me.
And the final person is Fred Roos, who's the producer.
That's the man.
Fred is an Academy Award-winning producer for Godfather 2, is also nominated for Apocalypse Now.
Fred finds the talent. He's got the eye. He pulled Darren's ass out of Albuquerque.
Did Charlie Sheen call you for the Violent Torpedo of Truth tour? Right? Get some talent on there.
I'm trying to have a good time here, man. Fred loves Charlie. He's tied with Marty, so we got to say that.
Charlie was with us in the Philippines as a little kid. About a year. We were shooting Apocalypse.
So, the big thing, and we discussed this before, Rob Lowe now has a book that's coming out, and he talked a lot about the, has anybody read the Vanity Fair that Rob was in? And he talks a lot about the casting of this film and what it was like and what the process was, and I thought it would be really interesting to hear from the producer's point of view and from the actor's point of view what that casting process was like. So I'd like to start, if we could, with Fred. This was a huge casting call. I mean, this wasn't just like, you know, here are 20 people. This was a huge casting call. What was that process for you? Why did you decide to do it that way? I mean, you are somebody who looks at talent and you're like, this person can work. Why did you feel the need to go to such an expansive amount to find all these people?
Well, the testing process that Rob describes in the magazine and in his book was just the final phase of it. There was, you know, weeks and weeks of meeting. Almost any kid in town who was the right age could get an interview for this movie. It wasn't hard. And those went out down to 20, about 20 that showed up. We did that big testing. Well, and we did it twice. We did it in LA and New York. And it was for these young actors, most of them were young working actors. Some were very, very fresh and new, but a lot of them had been acting since.
Dennis Quaid, Mickey Rourke, Val
Yeah.
Kilmer, I mean, the list goes on and
Yeah.
on.
So Francis always does things in an unorthodox way. The usual casting process is there'll be a schedule of meetings or readings, and the actors will wait in an outer room, all kind of looking at each other and sizing each other up. Then they're called to go in. They're nervous and tight, and it's their chance to chat and then read for Francis and myself, and usually a casting director is with us. And that's the way it's been done for forever, for years and years. But Francis decided to do it in a very unorthodox way. So all the finalists, these 20 or 25 terrific young actors, were invited to come at the same time, at the same place, in this sound stage. Had a few props, some couches and a few props, and we just started the reading process, the auditioning process, and we were taping it. And I don't think these actors had ever been in a situation where they actually are right there with their competitors and they're seeing the other person read. And I know they were very kind of uptight and nervous about it at first. And I think by the end of the day, this went on almost all day. I think they embraced it and had a...
Well, I think you know, if I could take over for a second, my experience from that process was, what I learned from that was there wasn't so much a competition from it as much as Francis creating a resource for the actors to draw from later in the film. We became friends, and we had this experience that we shared together. And, you know, landing the roles was like winning the Rumble. By the time we got to make the movie, we had gone through such a major process. You know, for me, I felt the least amount of stress auditioning. I mean, I sort of felt like, in a weird way, there was no pressure. I didn't know who Francis was. So, you know, I didn't know what Godfather was. I didn't know what Apocalypse was. And I didn't have that pressure of the Academy Awards weighing me down that he had won. And I think that, for me, is what he enjoyed about our relationship. But working with all of those actors gave me a real anchor point later on to be able to draw from. And that's something that I really admired from watching Francis put that together. Was, you know, the competition came later. You know, Fred, the way that production created the weekend games between the Socs and the Greasers. I mean, there were basketball matches, picnic parties, and, you know, we would show up in our jeans to go to work, and they would have these brand new sweatsuits and show up in their leather-bound scripts, and we had old holy notebooks and stuff like that. So there was a little bit...
Francis did that on purpose,
yeah,
to create kind of a competition between the...
Different floors, we were on different floors.
Now, you were in the big, expensive rooms.
So one of the things that Rob had said was that competition that was created didn't really work the way that they thought it would, because for you guys, you were like, we got the big roles. So you might have had natty notebooks, but you had the big roles. Darren, how was that for you when you may have had the bigger suite and everything?
Yeah, we reminded him of that day.
Well, I was on the fresh end of the...
He was a rookie.
That was brand new. I actually drove a friend of mine to an audition in Albuquerque and decided to go in and meet for myself. Fred was there, and Janet Hershenson. And so for me, the eye-opening experience was after The Outsiders. I thought they were all going to be like that. You know, I thought that the getting together and having pizza and auditioning for days and, you know, playing all the different roles and being together was the way it was done.
Well, now there's no budget for any of that. Now you know, you'll do a love scene with somebody, you'll be like, I'm sorry, what's your name? And Francis, you know, was so far ahead of his time that he was working and cutting everything on video, and he would show us things that he liked and things that maybe he didn't, and we really grew from that as a group. And again, the bond that was forged between all of us as cast members through that experience before we ever rolled tape was amazing. I mean, we were literally great friends by the time we started rolling film, and that's such a luxury. You know?
What was, and one unique thing about that day, where it was all day on this one sound stage and all the kids were there at one time, was that as it loosened up and the kids, the young actors saw that it was not that pressurous situation. Francis was a fun guy to be around, and a kid, an actor could say, let me try Johnny, or let me try this, or let me try that. And Francis was, sure, let's do one with switch parts. You play this and you play that. And you could ask to try anything, and he would let you.
But that was already, you was already set who you were playing.
No. This is when we were trying out, because I remember when Darren never auditioned for Randy. I don't think you auditioned for Dallas.
For Dallas, yeah, most of the time in New York there.
once you guys were done with that process, you guys are taping, and I want to go back to that for a minute, because I understand that a lot of the reasons you did rehearsals for 2 weeks was you didn't have the money to shoot, and you had to come back and figure out how that was done, at least according to the article. But what was the difference when you were done with the taping and you started shooting? What did you, Fred, notice was the difference in how they were acting, in terms of what their performances were?
Not much difference. They had already bonded by then. They were their characters. It was, that was one of the great things about the auditioning process and the rehearsal and the taping the rehearsal. By the time it was really to shoot, they were family.
I was so mesmerized by Matt Dillon, you know, and still watching him on film. I never met anybody from New York, you know. I was raised on a ranch out here outside of LA. My father's a cowboy, and just his mannerisms, and man, the girls would swoon. They would just, they treated him like he was one of the Beatles. and just, I remember just having so much admiration and respect and thinking he was the coolest thing ever. I wanted to be Matt Dillon.
Well, Leif Garrett at the time was still quite a big person then too, but was
Not so much.
No.
Matt Dillon.
It was that.
You can't go there.
Despite the fact that Matt had already been in some movies and had a girl following him, and he was even in the magazines, the teen magazines, he was down to earth from the get-go, wasn't he?
Amazing guy. You know, I remember when we all went to New York for sort of the final audition session. Matt invited about 6 or 7 of us to go have a pie. I didn't know what he was talking about. They would have some apple pie or something. And we go into an Italian restaurant and he orders pizza. And he bought us all pizza. And to me, that was just the coolest thing ever. This guy's awesome.
Did you have that same experience with him? Because you
Yeah.
Darren was there with his dad.
I was easy too.
Jack Dalton, he's like 6'5".
Yeah, my father was there as well. And
Toting Darren around New York City.
it was the first time, I mean, the audition process for me was the first time I've been on a plane as well. So I flew out to LA twice and flew out to New York once. And it was,
Are you still friends with the guy that you went to the original audition with?
actually I haven't talked to him.
We have a phone, you want to call him? So, is that correct during the initial rehearsals when they had finally cast everybody, that you guys were looking for the money, or that the money had somehow fallen through, and that you did the rehearsals for a few weeks before you could actually start the film?
If that was happened like that,
I don't recall that.
I don't recall that, and it may have happened. Maybe Robin is our.
Well, no, I love all the stories from everybody. You know, I wish if we could ever get all those egos into one room at one time.
We tried.
It would be unbelievable. But you know, I mean, of course, there were possibly some financial issues. There always is on every movie. You know, you lose locations, you lose actors, but you know, there was never a sense of doom, and never a sense of this movie's not going to be made. I mean, you talk about no money. I mean, literally, I think they took 2 weeks off and they started Rumblefish right afterwards. I mean, there was money around. The amazing thing about the experience for me was how Francis, in the middle of all this chaos, would take an hour off in the middle of the day and make us all spaghetti. He'd cook for us, you know, and he'd talk about what he was going to make. You know, he'd call you in and you'd go, you think you were going to talk about a scene, and he'd say, do you like fusilli? What the hell's that? Fusilli. I'm going to make a nice fusilli today for lunch.
Were you there during the shooting?
Oh yeah, entire. Plus 2 movies back to back. Tulsa's
Fred loves Tulsa.
like a second.
Did you stay in one of the crappy rooms at the bottom of the mountain?
No, I got an apartment eventually. But Tom here, Tommy, we called him Tommy then, and he changed it to C. Thomas Howell.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the story. I regret that terribly, by the way. No, I remember, because I remember there was a big thing about me going with the C, and you know, I was 15, my father really pushed for that, and Fred said, no man, you need to stay Tommy. And Fred, you were so fucking right. I just want to say that in front of all people. I regret that with every ounce of my soul. I would like to beat my father's ass for you, for that. I have so many times wanted to go back to just being Tommy. And I remember the conversations you had with my father, and you had, you know, with the casting people. No, he needs to say Tommy Howell, and that's who he is. And it's been torture going through life with nobody knows what the hell to call me anymore. C? Mr. C? It's horrible. And so I just wanted to tell you, I wish you would have won that battle. Holy shit, that's been miserable for me for 30 years.
I never got severe about it. I just tried to point out the reasonableness.
So right.
My memory of you, Tom, is, you had been around movie sets. I think you, if I recall, you had been like a kid stuntman.
Well, yeah, and I had done E.T.
You had been.
That was the only thing, and I got hired on E.T. because I could do stunts. My father was a stuntman. So I'd done, you know, a lot of sort of kid stunt stuff. Acting was not my forte.
So this was a major acting thing, but you had been around movie sets. You were not a baby of the woods.
Correct.
What did you see in him when you initially did the first part of the casting and you said, I'm bringing this guy back? What did you see in Tommy?
Quite simply, Ponyboy.
You knew from the get-go, so no matter what Francis Ford Coppola was doing and moving things around, you were like, this guy's Ponyboy.
No, there were other kids that...
Norman Mailer's kid, you guys kind of liked from me.
Yeah, there was other kids that auditioned for Ponyboy, but when Tommy walked in the room...
See what I mean? It's fucking torture.
All right, this half is C. Thomas Howell, this half is Tommy, and anytime you address him, make sure you remember that.
He was the horse to beat from the get-go.
You know, I felt, in all honesty, again, I don't know if it was the comfortability I had with Francis. There was only at one point toward the end of the process when we ended up in New York, and all of a sudden Francis was spending a lot of time with Norman Mailer's kid. I was like, what the hell's going on here, man? But I was the only actor that wasn't sort of switching roles around. I never read for any other role. I only was Ponyboy all the time. And there was...
You were the youngest.
I was the youngest, you know, so clearly I wasn't able to be anybody else. But it just felt right, you know. Nobody really said to me, you know, you're the guy. But there was a little bit of a vibe happening there, you know. And I think that, and you mentioned Rob's Vanity Fair, and I think he even said there was a certain comfortability working with me that just felt right, you know, and when it's right, and that's the thing, you know. I remember auditioning for the Black Stallion before, and you know, I grew up riding horses, and my father's a cowboy, and you guys went with Kelly Reno, and that ripped my heart out. I was really close to that role, believe it or not, and you know, I'd gone back to those auditions and gone out to Randall Ranch and rode horses for everybody, and I felt like, you know, I had my first shot at playing a lead, and oddly enough, that was another Francis Ford Coppola picture. And
You didn't direct it, though.
well, was that Carol? No.
Carol Bowden.
Yeah, that was. God, you talk about another unbelievable process. You go in and audition for the guy, and he stares right through your soul and doesn't say a freaking thing to you. And you leave and you cry all the way home.
And
Complete opposite than Francis, really, Carol.
they say that about me, too.
Only when you're not with us.
What did you see when you were cast Darren? What happened there?
Well, I always like to try to add somebody to a cast that's a total rookie that's never done anything. And Darren was that. He was a discovery in Albuquerque. I mean, we went to many cities in the preliminary days of casting The Outsiders, and had open calls where we'd see a new person every 5 minutes, just in the room. And 3 or 4 different cities, but the only one that came out of all that was Darren, out of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
It was strenuous then too, I remember, because we met you guys in the hotel room, we talked to you for a little bit, and then the next day we came back and improvised as well for a period of time, and kind of switched around and did a little bit of things.
Did they put you on videotape?
Yeah, we were on videotape, and it was, again, it was different than anything I've experienced since. And it really, I think you're right that it created a comfortability in going in and doing what you were doing. You really got to, when the people walked in the room, you saw who they were,
You got way past the nervous part of the work,
exactly.
and you started to get into what you could really bring to the table. And watching your performance, Darren, I mean, you're so comfortable. And when you asked Fred what he saw, I mean, I know Darren had done a lot of theater and a lot of stage, but he's so relaxed as an actor, and
He looked like a Soch.
In that scene at the very
what the hell
end,
happened to you?
and in the scene at the very end where the two of you are talking, what did you pull from? What were you looking at? What were you thinking about in terms of an actor? And what were you thinking about in terms of an actor? Because this is a resolution scene.
Right. Well,
Where were you
for me,
coming from?
that scene was a perfect example of Francis and the way that he was. For me, I was really nervous that day. Of course, it was like, here was the scene. And I just remember how fatherly he was. Because one thing that I vividly remember is they put a material over the windshield of the car to increase the light and diffuse it. So it's very bright in there. You're working with this incredible brightness. So you're kind of, you learn this trick of closing your eyes and then opening them at the right time so that you're not squinting the whole time. But I remember the whole thing was so, at one point I felt very much like it was just, it was overwhelming. And Francis put his arm around me and kind of led me away and just said, there's nothing, you don't have to do anything here. We can do this all day long. We can come back tomorrow and do this all day long.
That's where we ran out of money.
So after a couple weeks of that, we did, But, that was just the perfect example of,
Well, that just took the pressure off.
yeah, it just took all the pressure off. I knew Tommy well at that point, so we had the connection, we easily had the connection. And the part of the process, the other thing it did is we were very serious about what we were doing. In spite of all the fun and games that we had, as kids, we were all very serious about what we were doing when we were there.
And strangely, the risk that Fred and Francis and the production took was really other than Matt. Leif had done some singing and stuff, but Matt had played a lead in maybe 1 or 2 films. The rest of us, it was really pretty much our first time out the gate across the board.
Fred, was there anybody who surprised you beyond the audition where there was a scene or anything else you were just like, wow, this really just was amazing? Clearly that, he's incredible in the film. Were there other people who you cast and you were just like, wow, this guy's really good?
Ralph was amazing. I don't mean to answer for you, but Ralph was amazing.
I was just thinking of Ralph as I watched that close-up at the very end, how beautifully he did that. Ralph's
Are you talking about reading the letter, or are you talking about it dying?
reading the letter.
Right, yeah.
That superimposed close-up of him. Yeah, he's a very underrated actor.
Explaining the poem, right?
Now we know he can dance, too.
Actually, my favorite scene is when the two of you are talking in the park. That overhead
Beginning.
shot,
Yeah, that was a
overhead
beautiful
shot is
shot.
just an amazing, and his eyes, the way he just devotes to his eyes. He has always been a great actor.
Well, Ralph was quite, you never know it, but he was, apart from Patrick, I think he was the oldest one. Because I think he was like 20 or 21. I was 15. And, Ralph knew who Francis was. He was aware of it. And he went home every night and studied hard. I went home every night and tried to get changed to play Pac-Man. I was just a kid, and for me, there was an energy that Cruz had that stood out tremendously. He took it seriously. I think he had his front tooth removed for after the Rumble. He couldn't just walk out the door. He had to do the backflip off the car. He was always the guy that was like wanted to push it to the next level. And I'll never forget, when we were wrapping up the film, he came up to us and he said, "Guys, I got this movie in Chicago called Risky Business." And we all went, "Good for you, kid." You know, of course, one summer later, we were all wearing Ray-Bans and singing Bob Seger songs.
Who's the first person who was able to actually get Diane Lane's phone number, and can I have it?
No lie, right? No lie.
She and Leif had something previously as kids. But I know it had turned into a little bit of a problem. They butted heads.
Don't look at me, man. You just let the cat out of the bag. I was going to say nobody.
We're going to take some questions now. You, sir, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say, I read this book in high school, and as soon as I read the book, I said, this is going to be a great fucking movie one day. And a week later, I read, this is going to be a movie. I'm like, no way! And I was so excited. So then I seen it, and it was good. When you did the auditions and everything for all the actors, and you say you went around to different cities and whatever, did you say action movie come in audition, or did they have any clue what kind of movie it was going to be? Like, because then with the it was phenomenal that it all came together like it did, of course. But like, the actors were just going in blind to do any movie. Did they know anything about it? Or?
Francis Ford Coppola, man.
Not only that, you didn't even know who the hell he was. What are you talking about?
No, but he's saying that the actors, you know, the people that were coming in to try out, they knew. I didn't know. But I think, you know, Fred Roos, I mean, these guys
Like,
won Academy Awards.
When you were in the different cities, how did you advertise? How did the actors know to go to that hotel for the acting?
You put ads in the newspaper.
Local casting people.
Yeah, and on the radio, and
The movie's already been cast, so there's nothing left.
But it was a book too that I was familiar with. The book itself was already familiar from SE.
yeah.
But like, well, by the time most of the casting took place in Los Angeles. You know, I know they traveled around and checked out some other cities, but you know, there was about a week where I was coming in every day and meeting, like I said earlier, you know, phenomenal actors that we know today, and also the same process happened in New York. But I think on a smaller level, Fred, you know, like you said, ads in papers, radio, and local casting people. How did you hear about it, Darren, in Albuquerque?
This friend that I drove there had an agent in Albuquerque and I had a car. And so the class drive me. And so I drove them and then wrote a resume, which was probably mostly made up on just a 3-ring binder paper and stapled a Polaroid on there and decided to go in and meet these people.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Declan. This is one of my favorite movies and has been since I was 13 years old. And I hadn't seen it since I saw it in the theater when I was 13. And seeing it now, I realized that one of my other favorite films and my other favorite books is also referenced, which is Gone with the Wind. And I'm wondering what you guys thought the significance of that was.
Well, for me, I was too young to know. I mean, I didn't read the book and I didn't see the movie, but I can remember, you know, reading sort of pages out of, and that was the amazing thing about Francis is that, you know, I don't recall the pages being sort of highlighted. I do recall him sort of asking me to open it up and read some phrases from it. And they ended up using the bits and pieces that they felt were significant. But for me as an actor, I was just present and in the moment. That's all I knew. I wasn't sort of wise enough to be able to correlate the significance. I just was told, sit down here and smoke a cigarette and read something out of the book.
The Gone with the Wind was a big thing in S.E. Hinton, Susie Hinton, we call her.
It's the nurse, by the way, with Matt Dillon, just so everybody knows, when he's like, get the hell out of here, you make my stomach sick. That was S.E.
If any of you have read the book, you'll see that Gone with the Wind is a big factor in the book and the boy, just like it is in the movie. And Francis this was a book that had been out for a decade by the time we made it, maybe more than that. And Francis was determined to be true to the book, and he had Susie Hent, who lived in Tulsa still, right with us through the whole thing. So every step of the way, he would check to make sure that it was...
Well, you know, not only was he just true to the book, but he was true to the moment. And I wish I could have had a microphone and sort of talk to you guys through the movie, because there are countless moments. For example, when Matt Dillon falls off the chair in the movie theater, and I turn to the camera and laugh right in the camera. They use that moment. Francis uses every natural moment. There's the cameraman's hat blew off into a scene when Emilio, as 2-Bit, runs up and says, "Hey, I found myself a new hat." That was the cameraman's hat. That wasn't a part of the scene. It just blew off and rolled in, you know? And when we were in the church, Ralph and I were supposed to lay down and go to sleep, and the key grip who was pushing the dolly across the church, and it was a real old church, fell through some broken boards of the church, and it crashed. And I looked up and I said, "Johnny, you know, there's a monster outside." And they cut to a raccoon outside, you know. And Francis is amazing at finding those natural moments and utilizing them. And as a filmmaker, you know, today, and I watch this movie now, it teaches me and reminds me how important those truthful moments are. And you know, directing and being a good director is like being a good father or a psychologist, really. And you have to create what you want sometimes without really telling your actors what it is that you want, because the greatest moment in performances is allowing your actor to discover that moment for itself, and you try to capture that. And if you go up and say, "Do this," because it's great, it wrecks everything. And Francis is the master of that. He is, you know, it's like being the best manipulator you've ever met in your entire life, you know, and there's real art behind that. And that this movie is filled with those moments.
Yeah, the Rob Lowe interview actually talks a lot about that too, where he says that the statement is always that actors are great liars, and the truth is that actors are great truth tellers, and it's those moments of truth that show that. Will you say something, Fred?
I was just going to follow up on the lady's comment, Gone with the Wind. As an homage to Gone with the Wind, the opening titles of the movie come across the screen sideways.
That's the same in Gone with the Wind.
Same as in Gone with the Wind. That was a purposeful thing.
Did Stevie Wonder sing the song in Gone with the Wind? I gotta check that out.
You bet, right back there.
On the note of what you guys talk about, the truth and the moments and stuff, how much of the script was, or how many moments were improvised? Because like that scene where Matt Dillon's like, "I got you a hideout, man, I got you a hideout. Was like that in the script?
Well, first of all, Matt and Francis, I think Matt had more experience than the rest of us, so he understood that you could waver. You know, he understood that he was the character. And for me, I was sort of wet behind the ears and just sort of not wanting to do the quote-unquote wrong thing. And Matt was just, and I said to Darren when I was watching it, you know, he reminds me so much as like a young Marlon Brando, you know, he's just in the moment and present, and he's just fearful. I mean, fearless. He's just so fearless. He doesn't, you know, the moment when the little girl comes up, who was, by the way, Sofia Coppola, Francis's daughter, amazing director now, and she's like, "Can I have 10 cents?" He's like, "Get out of here, get out of here." And he looks, he says, "That was close." You know, like, what was close? She's gonna bust us? It's a great moment, you know.
So I'm going to ask a question I always like to ask, because there's always something fun that goes on with this. What was your favorite moment on the actual shoot, when you were just like, "This is the best goddamn day of my life"? Flip side, what was the worst moment where you were like, "Oh my God, get me out of here, I just got to get out"?
Well, the worst for me was the Rumble, because we had trained for weeks this elaborate fight, and Ponyboy was going to be very involved, and recall exactly why all of a sudden we went with the rain decision. I don't know if it rained partially that day and they brought in the rain towers to sort of finish it off, but if you remember, I basically get punched right in the face, drop in the mud, and you never see me again. Well, the guy slipped, and he was a friend of mine, Reed Rondell. I grew up with him. He punched me right in the chin, man. Boom, for real. It smashes me in the face, and I drop. And I was basically worthless for the next, 2 days. So Francis just said, "Well, kid, you got hit, man. You're out." So for me, that was super lame. But the best part of the movie, and I just gotta say, God rest his soul, Patrick Swayze. We lost a great man when he passed. I did 3 pictures with Patrick, and Darren was in 2 of them. Darren was also in Red Dawn with us. And there was I still to this day, I can't explain. I've never had an experience since then like it, but literally, girls would sleep in the hallways of our hotels.
These 5 or 6 hot boys. Pure and simple.
It was the emancipated 15-year-old.
Those were the days, man. Those were the days. It was an amazing experience. It was like being like a rock star,
Fred?
I was going to say the girls.
The girls in the hallway, they were the best.
I never went over to that hotel.
Yeah, you had the nice apartment, we already heard.
Yeah. Well, let's say the lowest ebb was when C. Thomas wouldn't keep his name Tommy. I didn't win that.
So it wasn't when the church completely burned down and you weren't expecting that, nothing like that, but you're just like, uh-oh.
We had that under control, didn't we? It was.
No,
Are you reading Rob's article?
No, that was a totally different article.
No, I think that was all designed.
I know a low for Tommy was the hair bleaching day.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, he was unhappy.
That wrecked me. Oh yeah, but everybody would open the door and it was a process, so it would be like bright orange. It looked like Ronald McDonald, and they'd all go, "Hey, did you see Tommy's hair?" I'm 15. The only thing I care about is my hair, man. Right? Yeah, it was terrible. That was a low point. That was a low point.
What about you, Darren?
I would have to say, for me, the whole thing was pretty much like a dream. It was just like floating on air the whole time. It was so amazing. Everybody got along great.
Yeah, you guys had enough time too, because Ralph and I pretty much worked all the time, and I don't know how these guys managed to manipulate the hotel managers, but I would come home after putting in 14 hours of work, and Darren and Leif
Allegedly.
had short-sheeted the beds, they would put saran wrap over the toilet seats, every horrible thing, turn the shower nozzle out so when you get home you just want to take a shower, you hit it, boom, and it hits you right in the face. One time I came home and every single thing in my hotel room, I mean everything from the bed to the couch to the TV to a toothbrush, everything you could imagine had been turned upside down. Everything.
Upside down. They were working a lot. We weren't working as much. So
this was the torture that the greasers went through.
All right,
You were greasers.
we actually have to end this, but as I'm always going to do, I'm going to just take one more audience question before they kill me. Who has the best question here? Is it really you? Because if it's not, I'm going to be upset. It's amazing, right?
It's amazing.
I'm not so sure. Anybody else? Go ahead.
With the new extended version that's been released recently, I just wanted to know what you guys think of that and how it compares to this one.
I'll go out on a limb and say I prefer it, myself. For me, the music is the biggest difference, and there's some missing scenes that are just wonderful. I mean, the film opens like the book, and there's a lot of missing footage in the new one, and the cuts from, they were like, you know, great cuts from the time, and no offense to Carmine Coppola, but you know, at times, I mean, the score just gets so kind of dramatic in this version, you know, and it's almost funny. I mean,
It's a much better version. To the later DVD that was put out 3 or 4 years ago is a much better version than this. And one of the key scenes that was not in the original is the scene where you and Rob are in bed, brothers in bed, right?
Yeah.
I
Easy.
mean, millions of brothers have
Could have said the courtroom scene, Fred.
No, but millions of brothers have slept in the same bed. It's not a, but somehow there was some pressure from the studio or somebody that was edgy or something at the time of the release. But it's so natural.
Also, there was the scene in the park
And
where
emotional,
Rob
that's very-
and Patrick and I are at the park, and you know, Rob has this big scene where he breaks down. You know, that was a really important scene for Rob, and when he didn't make the film, I know he was really upset about it, and that's in the new movie. But that is an amazing question. I would recommend to people that haven't seen that version to get it, especially since you've seen this one so recently, and just take a look at it. It's really fun, and there's some great lost audition tapes that have been added to that sort of specials, you know, when you get the DVD specials. Just check it out, and it's really worth your time and a lot of fun. You all right, Carl?
I'm checking to see if I can see, because there was somebody waving over there, and I wanted to...
Go ahead, man. I mean, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. There was somebody over there waving their hand, looking, sir? No? So is...
It has to be amazing. It has to be amazing, man. If it's not amazing.
All right, let's ask about the rumble scene. How long did it take to shoot? How much choreography was in it? And what's up with the rain scene? You did kind of answer a little bit of it earlier, but...
Well, you know, Darren wasn't in that scene, so I'll take this. Basically, you know, weeks of rehearsal, right, to prep for it. And then that was, I think, for sure 2 days, but I think 3 days to shoot, if I remember right. And I think it was the second day that it rained for real, which kind of put a damper on everything because, you know, for editing purposes and whatnot. And then so the third day they brought in the rain towers and just sort of soaked us for the entire night. But I believe it was a 3-day process.
Buddy Joe Hooker, wasn't he the...
We just worked with the other day, yeah, stunt coordinator, Buddy Joe Hooker. Just did an episode of Torchwood that he was...
he did a wonderful job of organizing that. And I think to fill it out with, I think we got some local high school football players in the scene to...
There were a lot of local kids, like in the very beginning, when we go into the cafe, you see the two guys whip out the knives and the guy slams the other guy into the car. Those were local kids that had never done stunts in their lives, and that was a pretty good fight that they put together, you know? So we had a lot of local talent that came together and worked so hard on this movie, you know. And you know, before we go, I want to thank everybody for coming, really, because this movie means so much to me personally. It was, you know, great to come and be a part of it and sort of see it again. And the thing that I love about it the most is the genuine. I mean, there's such a naive quality to these characters. I mean, all of them. Even Matt Dillon doing his Matt Dillon-ness. There's just such a beauty, and I'm glad you could share it with me. You know, so thanks for coming.
I just want to tell you one more thing. We're creating a Black Stallion TV series, and
An Outsiders teacher.
yeah, Outsiders. Slip of the tongue. Yeah, an Outsiders TV series.
What a lame plug if he was doing the Black Stallion. By the way, Tuning into my Black Stallion TV series.
Without Tommy Howell.
That's right, man, without my ass.
So I'll be going.
I'll be playing Ponyboy in the series. It's okay.
I'll be going through this whole process again to find Ponyboy.
Have you
Johnny.
cast it, Fred?
No. We're waiting. The script should be turned in this week by a great writer named Robin Swikord, who's Academy Award nominated writer woman. The pilot will be about feature length, and then it'll go backwards in time.
What network, Fred?
The new cable channel called Epix, which is owned by MGM, Lionsgate, and Paramount.
And when will it be airing? Do we know yet?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. But you think in a year or so?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And we'll go back to Tulsa and do it there.
Okay, so we definitely have to end this.
Yes.
Where would Ponyboy be today?
Right here, giving a look at me.
So this half needs to thank C. Thomas Howell. This half needs to thank Tommy Howell. Jeff, Darren, thank you everybody. Thanks for coming.